They say a woman's fury is the most dangerous force in nature, but they're wrong. It's not her fury you should fear. It's her silence. Rain hammers the streets of Manhattan as a woman in a nightgown stands alone on the sidewalk, 8 months pregnant, cast out into the storm by the man who swore to protect her. In her arms, she holds nothing but a single bag and the weight of betrayal that cuts deeper than any blade. Some men believe money makes them untouchable. That power grants them the right to destroy lives without consequence. That women are disposable things to be used, discarded, forgotten. Lightning illuminates her face as she looks up at the penthouse windows that were once her home, now glowing with the laughter of her replacement. But every empire built on cruelty carries the seeds of its own destruction. Every tyrant who mistakes silence for surrender is about to learn that the most dangerous enemy is the one with nothing left to lose. Her hand moves protectively to her belly as she makes a promise in the darkness, not just to herself, but to every woman who has ever been told she was nothing. Tonight, a victim dies in the rain. Tomorrow, a warrior is born. And some debts can only be paid in justice. The Manhattan skyline stretched endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, a glittering tapestry of ambition and dreams. Isabella Romano stood in the nursery she had spent months designing, her hand resting gently on her 8-month pregnant belly as she adjusted the final touches on the custom-made Italian crib. The soft morning light filtered through the silk curtains, casting a golden glow over the room that would soon welcome her daughter. At 28, Isabella had sacrificed everything for love. 3 years ago, she had been a rising star in the architectural world, her innovative designs earning recognition across New York's elite circles. That was before she met Marcus Blackwood at a charity art exhibition in the Met. The 42-year-old real estate tycoon had swept her off her feet with his commanding presence, his empire worth over $3 billion, and promises of a fairy tale life. "Mrs. Blackwood," came the voice of Maria, their housekeeper, from the doorway. "Mr. Blackwood has left for his morning meeting. He said he'll be back late tonight." Isabella nodded, trying to hide the disappointment that had become all too familiar. Marcus's absences had grown longer, his excuses more elaborate. The man who once couldn't bear to be away from her for an hour now seemed to find every reason to avoid coming home. The penthouse, worth $15 million and perched high above Central Park, felt more like a golden cage with each passing day. Isabella wandered through the rooms that had once filled her with joy. The Italian marble kitchen where they used to cook together, the library where Marcus would read to her belly, the terrace where they'd watch sunsets and plan their future. Everything began to change 3 months ago. Marcus started working later, taking mysterious phone calls in the bathroom, and treating Isabella with a coldness that made her question everything. She found hotel receipts for the Four Seasons, 2 guests, champagne service. When she asked about them, Marcus brushed her off with talks of business meetings and client entertainment. Then came the morning she found the lipstick stain. Isabella was preparing Marcus's dry cleaning when she noticed it, a deep crimson mark on the collar of his white dress shirt, the same shade that had never touched her lips. Her hands trembled as she held the evidence of his betrayal, her pregnancy making the discovery feel even more devastating. That evening, when Marcus returned from another late meeting, Isabella confronted him in their bedroom overlooking the city. "Whose lipstick is this?" "Marcus," she asked, holding up the shirt with shaking hands. Marcus barely glanced at it, loosening his tie with infuriating casualness. "Probably from that client dinner. You know how these society women are, air kisses and all that nonsense. This isn't from an air kiss. Marcus, this is from someone who was very close to you." He turned to face her, and for a moment, Isabella saw something cold and calculating in his eyes that she'd never noticed before. "Isabella, you're being paranoid. Pregnancy hormones. Maybe you should talk to Dr. Peterson about it." The dismissal cut deeper than any accusation could have. Here she was, carrying his child, expressing legitimate concerns, and he was treating her like an unstable woman imagining things. Over the following weeks, Isabella began to notice more signs. Text messages that made Marcus smile in ways he hadn't smiled at her in months. Credit card statements showing purchases at jewelry stores, jewelry she never received. Most tellingly, Marcus had started taking his phone everywhere, even to the bathroom, clutching it like a lifeline to another world. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, Isabella made a decision that would change everything. On a rainy Tuesday evening, she followed Marcus to Le Bernardin, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. Her heart pounded as she watched from across the street, hidden under the awning of a neighboring building. What she saw destroyed her world completely. Marcus sat at an intimate corner table with a stunning blonde woman who looked to be in her mid-20s. Isabella recognized her immediately. Scarlett Hayes, the model-turned-actress whose face graced magazine covers and billboards across the city. They weren't just having dinner. They were completely absorbed in each other, holding hands across the table, speaking in the intimate whispers of lovers. But it was what Isabella overheard when she moved closer to the restaurant's window that truly shattered her heart. "After the baby is born, I'll divorce Isabella," Marcus was saying, his voice carrying through the glass. "She's become so clingy, so boring. All she talks about is nursery colors and baby names." Scarlett laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. "I can't wait anymore, darling. This pretending is killing me. When will you tell her?" "Soon, sweetheart. Very soon. She served her purpose, giving me an heir. But you're my future." Isabella's legs nearly gave out beneath her. The man she had loved, the man whose child she carried, was discussing her as if she were nothing more than a breeding mare. Rain began to fall harder, mixing with the tears streaming down her face as she stumbled back to the penthouse that no longer felt like home. The confrontation that night was unlike anything Isabella could have imagined. "I saw you tonight," she said when Marcus walked through the door, his hair slightly damp from the rain. "With Scarlett Hayes." Marcus didn't even have the decency to look surprised. Instead, he hung up his coat with deliberate slowness and turned to face her with an expression of cold amusement. "Did you now?" he said, his voice carrying a tone she'd never heard before. "And what exactly did you see?" "Isabella, I saw my husband having dinner with his mistress. I heard you planning my future like I wasn't even a person." Marcus walked to the bar cart and poured himself a scotch, taking his time as if this conversation were merely an inconvenience. "You know what your problem is, Isabella. You never understood what this marriage was really about." "What are you talking about?" He turned to face her, his eyes cold as winter. "Did you really think I married you for love? You were convenient, Isabella, beautiful, talented, good breeding stock. I needed a wife who could give me children and look good at charity events. You served that purpose admirably." Isabella felt like she'd been slapped. "Marcus, I love you. We built a life together. I gave up my career for you. And I gave you a lifestyle most women would kill for. Penthouses, jewelry, designer clothes, trips to Paris and Dubai. You've been well compensated for your services." The cruelty in his words made Isabella's chest tighten. She placed both hands on her belly, feeling their daughter moving restlessly inside her, as if sensing her mother's distress. "This is your child, Marcus. Our daughter." "My daughter," he corrected sharply. "And she'll have a much better life with me than she would with a woman who has nothing to offer but tears and emotional outbursts." Isabella couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You can't be serious. You can't just dispose of me like I'm nothing." Marcus finished his scotch and set the glass down with a sharp clink. "Actually, I can. You signed a prenuptial agreement. Remember, ironclad? If we divorce, you get $50,000 and that's it. No alimony, no property, no custody rights." "Marcus, please." Isabella sank into a chair, the weight of her pregnancy and the shock of his betrayal overwhelming her. "I'm 8 months pregnant. You can't just throw me out." "I'm not throwing you out. Isabella, I'm offering you a choice. You can leave quietly, take the $50,000, and disappear. Or we can do this the hard way, through lawyers and courts, where you'll end up with nothing anyway and everyone will know exactly why our marriage failed. Isabella looked up at the man she had loved, searching for any trace of the person who had once held her hand and promised her forever. She found nothing but cold calculation. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? Marcus shrugged, the gesture more devastating than anger would have been. That's not my problem anymore, but I suggest you figure it out quickly. I want you gone by tomorrow night. Scarlett is moving in this weekend. The words hit Isabella like a physical blow. Not only was he discarding her, but he was immediately replacing her with the woman who had helped destroy their marriage. Marcus, I'm begging you. Isabella struggled to her feet, her hands clasped together. I'll do anything. We can work this out. Think about our daughter. Our daughter will be fine, Marcus interrupted coldly. She'll have everything she needs. A stable home, private schools, the best of everything. What she doesn't need is a bitter, resentful mother poisoning her against her father. Isabella felt their daughter kick sharply, as if responding to the tension in the room. The movement reminded her that she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for her child's future. I won't sign custody away, she said, finding a strength she didn't know she possessed. You can keep your money, your penthouse, your mistress. But I won't give up my daughter. Marcus's expression darkened. You will if you know what's good for you. I have the best lawyers money can buy. Isabella, I have unlimited resources. You have nothing. Don't make this harder than it has to be. When Isabella still didn't move, Marcus walked to the phone and pressed a button. Within minutes, 2 security guards appeared at the penthouse door. Escort Mrs. Romano out, Marcus said, using her maiden name like a slap. She's no longer welcome here. Marcus, please, Isabella cried as the guards approached. It's raining. I'm 8 months pregnant. You can't do this. But Marcus had already turned away, pouring himself another drink as if she were already gone. Isabella found herself on the street in nothing but her nightgown and slippers, holding a single bag with her identification and the little cash she had in her purse. The rain soaked through her thin clothing as she stood on the sidewalk, looking up at the penthouse windows that had been her home for 3 years. A taxi driver, taking pity on her condition, let her sit in his cab for the night. As Isabella huddled in the back seat, feeling her daughter's movements and trying to process the devastation of the last few hours, she made herself a promise. Marcus Blackwood might think he had won, but he had no idea who he was dealing with. Isabella Romano had built a successful career from nothing once before. Now she would do it again, not just for herself, but for her daughter. The next morning, contractions started. Isabella found herself in the emergency room of Mount Sinai Hospital, alone and terrified, as the medical staff rushed around her, checking her blood pressure and monitoring the baby. One person stood out among the chaos. Dr. Sophia Chen, a lawyer who had been visiting a client in the hospital, noticed Isabella's distress and approached her bed. I couldn't help but overhear, Sophia said gently. You mentioned being thrown out by your husband while pregnant. Isabella looked up at the Asian woman with kind eyes and professional attire. Are you a social worker? I'm a lawyer, immigration law, primarily, but I've handled my share of divorce and custody cases. What happened to you? Through tears and pain, Isabella told her story. Sophia listened with growing anger, taking notes and asking pointed questions about the prenuptial agreement, Marcus's threats, and the circumstances of Isabella's removal from the penthouse. Isabella, Sophia said when the story was finished, I want you to listen to me very carefully. What your husband did to you isn't just morally reprehensible, it's legally questionable, and I suspect there's a lot more to Marcus Blackwood's finances than meets the eye. Isabella looked at this stranger who was showing her more kindness than her husband had in months. I don't have money for a lawyer. Marcus made sure of that. Sophia smiled, and there was something fierce in her expression. Don't worry about money right now. I specialize in cases where powerful men think they can dispose of women like used tissues, and I've never lost a case. As Isabella's contractions subsided and the doctors confirmed that her daughter was safe for now, Sophia leaned in closer. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to make sure you have a safe place to stay and medical care. Then, we're going to investigate every aspect of Marcus Blackwood's business dealings. Something tells me a man who treats his pregnant wife this way has other secrets he's hiding. Sophia handed Isabella her business card. I want you to trust me. Isabella, by the time we're finished, Marcus Blackwood will be begging you for forgiveness. Isabella clutched the card like a lifeline, feeling hope for the first time since her world had collapsed. She didn't know it yet, but Sophia Chen was about to become the instrument of Marcus Blackwood's downfall. The studio apartment in Queens was a far cry from the Manhattan penthouse, but it was clean, safe, and most importantly, it was Isabella's. Sophia had arranged the temporary housing through a network of women's shelters and legal aid organizations, ensuring that Isabella had a place to recover and plan her next moves. 3 weeks had passed since that devastating night, and Isabella's daughter, Emma, had arrived safely despite the trauma. As Isabella held her newborn daughter in the cramped but tidy space, she marveled at the baby's perfect features and strong grip. Emma seemed to possess a fierce determination that reminded Isabella of her own inner strength. She's beautiful, Sophia said, visiting with coffee and a stack of legal documents. And she's lucky to have a mother who's willing to fight for her. Isabella looked up from nursing Emma, her eyes tired but determined. What did you find? Sophia's expression grew serious as she spread papers across the small dining table. More than I expected, and all of it very interesting. Isabella, your husband isn't just a successful businessman. He's been operating on the edge of legality for years. What do you mean? Let me start with the prenuptial agreement. Sophia pulled out a thick document. I had it analyzed by a handwriting expert and a forensic document examiner. The signature on this contract isn't yours. Isabella nearly choked on her coffee. What? It's a forgery, and not even a very good one. Someone copied your signature from other documents, but they made several mistakes that an expert can easily identify. Sophia pointed to specific areas on the document. The pressure points are wrong, the letter formation is inconsistent, and most tellingly, the signature was done with a different type of pen than the one used to fill out the rest of the document. Isabella stared at the papers in shock. But I remember signing a prenup. We did it at Marcus's lawyer's office. I'm sure you did sign something, but I guarantee it wasn't this document. My guess is that you signed a much more reasonable agreement, and Marcus had his lawyers create this version later, forging your signature to ensure he'd get everything if you divorced. The implications hit Isabella like a tidal wave. If the prenup is fake, then you're entitled to half of everything he owns, plus alimony and child support, Sophia finished. But that's just the beginning. Isabella, I want you to meet my brother. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Sophia opened it to reveal a tall, lean man in his 30s with the same intelligent eyes as his sister. Isabella, this is Robert Chen. He's a cybersecurity specialist who works with federal agencies. Robert shook Isabella's hand gently, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby. I've been looking into Marcus Blackwood's financial activities. What I've found is concerning. He pulled out a laptop and opened several windows displaying bank records, transaction histories, and corporate filings. Marcus has been moving money through offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands for the past 5 years, Robert explained. Significant amounts. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that appear to have never been declared to the IRS. Isabella felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying he's been committing tax evasion? Tax evasion, money laundering, possibly worse, Robert confirmed. And your friend Scarlett Hayes is more involved than just being his mistress. She's been receiving regular payments from Marcus's offshore accounts, $50 million over the past 2 years. Sophia leaned forward. Scarlett isn't just the other woman, Isabella. She's a business partner in whatever illegal activities Marcus has been conducting. Isabella looked down at Emma, who had fallen asleep in her arms. What kind of business? Robert's expression grew darker. That's where things get really disturbing. I found email correspondence between Marcus and Scarlett discussing a woman named Elena Martinez. Ring any bells? Isabella searched her memory. No, I don't think so. Elena Martinez was Marcus's previous wife, Sophia said quietly. She died in a car accident 5 years ago, right after she filed for divorce. While she was pregnant, the room fell silent except for Emma's soft breathing. Isabella felt sick as the implications became clear. You think Marcus killed his first wife? I think Marcus and Scarlett have been working together for longer than anyone realized, Robert said. And I think Elena Martinez discovered something that made her a liability. He pulled up another set of documents. Elena hired a private investigator before she died. That investigator, James Morrison, disappeared 2 weeks after Elena's death, but his partner kept copies of his files. Sophia took over the explanation. Elena had discovered that Marcus was using his real estate company to launder money for some very dangerous people. When she threatened to go to the authorities, she became a problem that needed to be solved. Isabella felt tears welling up in her eyes. And now I'm the same kind of problem. No, Sophia said firmly. You're not Elena Martinez. You have us. You have evidence. And most importantly, you're going to strike first. Robert pulled up another screen showing Marcus's bank accounts. We've been building a case with the FBI and the IRS. They're very interested in Marcus's offshore activities, but we need more time to gather everything we need. How much time? Isabella asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Sophia replied. Can you lay low that long? Isabella looked at her daughter, then at the 2 people who had shown her more loyalty in 3 weeks than her husband had in 3 years. What exactly are we planning? Sophia smiled, and there was something predatory in her expression. We're going to destroy Marcus Blackwood's entire empire, financially, legally, and personally. By the time we're finished, he'll be lucky if he's not sharing a cell with Scarlett. Over the following days, Isabella watched in amazement as Sophia and Robert built their case against Marcus. They worked 18-hour days coordinating with federal agents, gathering evidence, and preparing for what Sophia called the most satisfying legal destruction I've ever had the privilege to orchestrate. Isabella contributed what she could, providing details about Marcus's business practices, his associates, and the offshore accounts she had unknowingly seen him access from their home computer. Every piece of information added another nail to Marcus's coffin. Then, on a Wednesday morning, Marcus appeared at Isabella's door. Isabella was feeding Emma when she heard the knock. Through the peephole, she saw her estranged husband standing in the hallway, looking as polished and confident as ever in his expensive suit. Isabella, he said when she opened the door with the chain still attached. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Marcus? Oh, but there is. His voice carried that familiar tone of cold amusement. I heard you've been talking to lawyers, making threats. It's really quite amusing. Isabella felt her chest tighten, but she forced herself to remain calm. I'm protecting my daughter's interests. Marcus laughed, the sound echoing off the narrow hallway walls. Your daughter, Isabella, you're living in a studio apartment in Queens. You can barely afford diapers. What exactly do you think you can offer a child? Love, stability, a mother who won't abandon her. Love doesn't pay for private school. Isabella, love doesn't buy health care or provide security. Marcus stepped closer to the door. I'm prepared to be generous. $100,000 and you sign away all parental rights. Emma grows up with every advantage, and you can start over somewhere else. Isabella looked at this man who had once been everything to her, who had promised her forever, and felt nothing but pity. Marcus, you really don't understand. Do you understand what you think this is about money? You think I'm some desperate woman who'll take whatever scraps you're willing to throw at me? Isabella shifted Emma to her other arm. But this isn't about money. Marcus, this is about justice. Marcus's expression darkened slightly. Justice, Isabella. You're being naive. I have the best lawyers money can buy. I have resources you can't even imagine. What exactly do you think you're going to accomplish with some legal aid lawyer who probably works out of a strip mall? I guess we'll find out. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, and Isabella saw something flicker in his eyes. Uncertainty. Perhaps even fear. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Isabella, you have no idea what you're getting involved in. Is that a threat, Marcus? It's friendly advice. Some battles can't be won, no matter how righteous you think you are. Isabella met his gaze steadily. You know what, Marcus? You're right. Some battles can't be won, but this isn't one of them. Marcus turned to leave, then paused. You have until Friday to reconsider. After that, the offer is off the table, and you'll have to live with the consequences of your choice. After he left, Isabella called Sophia immediately. He's scared, Sophia said after hearing about the encounter. Marcus wouldn't be making offers if he wasn't worried about what we might find. He seemed pretty confident to me. Trust me, Isabella, I've seen this before. Powerful men like Marcus project confidence right up until the moment their world collapses, and his world is about to come crashing down. That evening, Robert made a breakthrough that would change everything. I got into Scarlett's email account, he announced, bursting into Isabella's apartment with his laptop. Isabella, you need to see this. He pulled up a series of email exchanges between Scarlett and Marcus, dating back over 2 years. As Isabella read them, her blood ran cold. Marcus, darling. One email from Scarlett read, I'm getting impatient about the Isabella situation. She's asking too many questions about your business trips. Maybe it's time to consider the Elena solution. Marcus's response was equally chilling. Not yet. Isabella is more useful alive for now. But after the baby is born, we'll discuss options. Another email chain detailed payments to a man named Viktor Petrov, described as someone who handles problems quietly and permanently. This is it, Sophia said, reading over Isabella's shoulder. This is proof of conspiracy to commit murder. Not just Elena Martinez, but potentially you as well. Isabella felt Emma stir in her arms and realized her hands were shaking. They were planning to kill me. We're being the operative phrase, Robert said grimly, because tomorrow morning, we're taking everything we have to the FBI, and Marcus Blackwood's reign of terror is going to end. Sophia placed a reassuring hand on Isabella's shoulder. Isabella, by this time tomorrow, Marcus will be in federal custody, Scarlett too, and you and Emma will be safe. As Isabella looked at her daughter's peaceful face, she made a silent promise. Emma would grow up in a world where Marcus Blackwood couldn't hurt anyone ever again. The wheels of justice were about to turn, and Marcus Blackwood was about to learn that some women don't break. They get even. Marcus Blackwood woke up on Friday morning with the confidence of a man who had never faced real consequences for his actions. The sun streamed through the windows of his penthouse as he prepared for what he expected to be another ordinary day of conducting business and managing his empire. At 6:00 a.m., he emerged from the shower to find Scarlett already awake, applying makeup at the vanity mirror in their bedroom. The sight of her should have brought him pleasure, but lately, even Scarlett's beauty couldn't distract him from the nagging worry that Isabella might actually try to fight him. Good morning, darling, Scarlett purred, not looking up from her reflection. Big day today. The usual, Marcus replied, selecting a tie from his collection. Board meeting at 10, then lunch with the Singapore investors. Should be home by 8. What about the Isabella problem? Marcus paused in knotting his tie. What about it? She didn't take your offer yesterday. Are we moving to phase 2? Marcus looked at Scarlett's reflection in the mirror, noting the calculating gleam in her eyes. Sometimes her eagerness for violence unsettled even him. Not yet. Let's see what her lawyers actually file before we make any dramatic moves. I still think you're underestimating her, Scarlett said, finally turning to face him. Desperate women can be unpredictable. Isabella isn't desperate. She's defeated. There's a difference. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from his lawyer. Need to see you immediately. Emergency. Problem? Scarlett asked, or noticing his frown. Nothing I can't handle. But as Marcus made his way to his office, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. His lawyer, Harold Weinstein, wasn't the type to use words like emergency lightly. At 6:30 a.m., Marcus's phone rang again. This time it was Harold himself. Marcus, where are you right now? In my car, heading to the office. What's the emergency? Turn around. Come to my office immediately. And Marcus, don't stop anywhere. Don't talk to anyone. And for God's sake, don't access any of your bank accounts. Harold, you're scaring me. What's going on? Every single one of your accounts has been frozen by federal order. We're talking about a complete asset freeze. Personal accounts, business accounts, investment portfolios, everything. Marcus felt the world tilt around him. That's impossible. On what grounds? Money laundering, tax evasion, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other federal charges I'm still reading through. Marcus, they have documentation going back 5 years, bank records, email exchanges, witness testimony. This isn't some fishing expedition. This is a fully prepared federal case. Marcus's driver glanced in the rearview mirror as his passenger went white as a sheet. Sir, are you all right? Drive to Harold's office, Marcus managed. Now. By the time Marcus reached his lawyer's office, the reality of his situation was beginning to sink in. Harold Weinstein had been his legal counsel for over a decade, handling everything from business acquisitions to personal scandals. Marcus had never seen the usually composed lawyer looking so rattled. Sit down, Marcus, Harold said, gesturing to a chair in front of his desk. We need to discuss your options. And frankly, there aren't many good ones. This has to be Isabella's doing, Marcus said, his mind racing. That legal aid lawyer she hired, they must have filed some kind of nuisance suit. Harold shook his head grimly. Marcus, this isn't coming from legal aid. The lead attorney on this case is Sophia Chen from Chen & Associates. They're one of the most prestigious legal firms in the city, and they don't take cases they can't win. I've never heard of them. Then you haven't been paying attention? Sophia Chen has taken down 3 Fortune 500 CEOs in the past 5 years. She specializes in cases involving powerful men who abuse their wives and families. And Marcus, she has never lost. Marcus felt panic beginning to set in. What kind of evidence are they claiming to have? Harold opened a thick folder and began reading. Bank records showing transfers of over $200 million to offshore accounts. Email communications between you and Scarlett Hayes discussing illegal activities. Witness testimony about the death of Elena Martinez. And Marcus, they have recordings. What kind of recordings? Phone conversations between you and Viktor Petrov discussing permanent solutions to your problems? Video surveillance of you and Scarlett entering a warehouse where Petrov's organization stores bodies before disposal. Marcus's world seemed to be collapsing around him. How is that possible? How could they have any of this? Because, Harold said quietly, someone on the inside has been feeding them information. Someone with access to your personal communications, your business dealings, and your extracurricular activities. At that moment, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Scarlett. Need to talk. Emergency. I have to call Scarlett, Marcus said, reaching for his phone. I wouldn't recommend that, Harold advised. Your phone communications are almost certainly being monitored at this point, but Marcus was already dialing. Scarlett answered on the first ring. Marcus, thank God. Are you seeing the news? What news? Turn on Channel 7 now. Harold reached for the remote and turned on the television in his office. The morning news was showing aerial footage of Scarlett's apartment building, with FBI agents leading a blonde woman in handcuffs toward a waiting vehicle. Federal agents arrested model and actress Scarlett Hayes this morning on charges related to money laundering and conspiracy to commit murder. The reporter was saying. Hayes, who has been linked romantically to real estate tycoon Marcus Blackwood, is expected to face additional charges as the investigation continues. Marcus stared at the screen in horror as he watched his mistress being loaded into an FBI vehicle. Scarlett, are you? I'm not at the apartment. Her voice came through the phone, tight with panic. I saw them coming and got out through the back. But Marcus, they have everything. All our emails, all our financial records, everything about Victor and the Elena situation. Harold was frantically making notes and pointing at his watch, clearly wanting Marcus to end the call. Where are you now? Marcus asked. I can't tell you over the phone, but Marcus, we need to get out of the country. Today, I have connections who can help us disappear, but we need to move fast. Scarlett, that's not... I can't just run. I have a business, a reputation. You have a federal investigation and a murder charge. Scarlett's voice rose to near hysteria. They're going to arrest you next. We need to leave now. The line went dead. Harold looked at Marcus with a mixture of pity and professional concern. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Did you have anything to do with Elena Martinez's death? Marcus met his lawyer's eyes for a long moment. For the first time in years, he considered telling the complete truth, but old habits died hard. Elena died in a car accident. I had nothing to do with it. Harold nodded, though his expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. Then we fight this. But Marcus, you need to understand, if even half of what they're alleging is true, you're looking at life in prison. At 9:00 a.m., Marcus received a call that would change everything. Mr. Blackwood. The voice was professional, female, unfamiliar. This is Sophia Chen. I represent Isabella Romano in her divorce proceedings against you. I know who you are, Marcus said, his voice tight with anger. What do you want? I want to invite you to a meeting. My office today at 2 p.m. Ms. Romano will be there, along with some federal agents who have questions about your business practices. I'm not meeting with anyone without my lawyer present. Of course, Mr. Weinstein is welcome to attend. But Marcus, may I call you Marcus? I want you to understand something. This meeting is a courtesy. You can attend voluntarily, or federal agents can arrest you, and we can have this conversation in a much less comfortable setting. Marcus felt his control slipping away completely. What exactly are you accusing me of? I'm not accusing you of anything. Marcus, I'm presenting evidence of tax evasion, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and domestic abuse. The federal government will handle the accusations. This is ridiculous. You can't prove any of... Actually, I can prove all of it. Bank records, email communications, witness testimony, recorded phone conversations. Marcus, I have enough evidence to put you away for several lifetimes. Sophia's voice remained calm and professional, which somehow made her words more terrifying than if she had been shouting. But here's what I find most interesting, she continued. A man who throws his 8 months pregnant wife out in the rain, who forges legal documents, who conspires with his mistress to commit murder. That same man is about to lose everything he thought made him powerful. You don't know what you're dealing with, Marcus said, trying to summon his old intimidating tone. Oh, but I do. I'm dealing with a coward who preys on women because he's too weak to face real opponents. And Marcus, I'm a real opponent. The line went quiet for a moment before Sophia spoke again. 2 p.m. Marcus, don't be late. And Marcus, bring your checkbook. You're going to need it. At Chen & Associates, Isabella sat in the conference room with Emma sleeping in her arms, watching as Sophia and Robert made final preparations for what Sophia called the most satisfying legal destruction of my career. Are you ready for this? Sophia asked Isabella. Seeing Marcus again isn't going to be easy. Isabella looked down at her daughter, then back at Sophia with steady eyes. I've been ready for this since the night he threw me out in the rain. At exactly 2 p.m., Marcus Blackwood walked into the conference room flanked by Harold Weinstein and two other lawyers. He looked like a man trying to project confidence while his world crumbled around him. Isabella barely recognized the man who had once been her husband. His usually perfect appearance showed signs of strain. His tie was slightly crooked, his hair less than perfectly styled, and there was something desperate in his eyes that she had never seen before. "Isabella," Marcus said, his voice attempting warmth but achieving only awkwardness. "You look, well, hello, Marcus." The room fell silent as federal agents took their seats around the conference table. Agent Sarah Mitchell, who had been leading the investigation, opened a thick folder and began the proceedings. "Mr. Blackwood, we're here to discuss some irregularities in your financial records and business practices. You have the right to remain silent, but given the extent of the evidence we've gathered, cooperation at this point might be in your best interest." Harold leaned forward. "What exactly are you alleging?" Sophia stood and activated a large screen on the wall. "Let's start with the simple stuff. Tax evasion." The screen displayed bank records showing transfers totaling over $200 million to accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Panama. Over the past 5 years, Marcus has failed to report income from these offshore accounts, resulting in approximately $50 million in unpaid federal taxes. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Those are legitimate business investments." "Actually, they're not," Robert interrupted, pulling up another set of documents. "These accounts were used to launder money from various illegal activities, including real estate fraud, bribery of city officials, and payments to organized crime figures." The evidence was overwhelming and professionally presented. Sophia and Robert had clearly spent weeks preparing every detail, anticipating every possible defense Marcus might offer. "Now," Sophia said, "let's discuss the forged prenuptial agreement." She displayed the original prenup alongside the version Marcus had used to threaten Isabella. The differences were stark when shown side by side. A handwriting expert has confirmed that Isabella's signature on the second document is a forgery. This constitutes fraud and makes the entire agreement null and void. Harold whispered something to Marcus, who was growing paler by the minute. "But here's where things get really interesting," Sophia continued, clearly enjoying herself. "The Elena Martinez situation." The screen now showed email exchanges between Marcus and Scarlett, discussing Elena's interference and the need for permanent solutions. Isabella watched Marcus's face as his own words appeared on the screen, documenting his involvement in his first wife's murder. "Elena Martinez died in what was ruled an accident," Sophia explained to the room. But emails between Marcus and Scarlett Hayes reveal that they hired Viktor Petrov, a known associate of Russian organized crime, to eliminate Elena when she threatened to expose their money laundering operation. Agent Mitchell leaned forward. "Mr. Blackwood, these communications also suggest that you and Ms. Hayes were planning similar action against Ms. Romano." Isabella felt Emma stir in her arms and realized she had been holding her breath. The evidence was even more damning than she had imagined. Marcus finally found his voice. "Those emails are taken out of context. She was just being dramatic. We never actually did anything to Elena." "Actually," Robert said, pulling up another file, "we have bank records showing payments to Viktor Petrov totaling $500,000, made 2 days before Elena's death." Sophia moved to stand directly in front of Marcus. "But you know what I find most interesting about all of this? A man who thought he could dispose of women like used tissues is about to lose everything to the women he tried to destroy." She turned to address the room formally. "Based on the evidence presented, we are requesting the following full custody of Emma Romano Blackwood to Isabella Romano, with no visitation rights for Marcus Blackwood. Division of all marital assets, including 60% ownership of Blackwood Enterprises transferred to Isabella Romano as compensation for emotional distress and attempted fraud. Alimony of $1 million per month for 10 years. And full cooperation with federal authorities in the prosecution of murder and conspiracy charges." The room was completely silent. Marcus stared at the terms, his face cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally, something resembling panic. "This is insane," he said finally. "You can't take everything I built." Isabella stood up, still holding Emma, and spoke for the first time since the meeting began. "Marcus, do you remember what you said to me the night you threw me out?" Marcus looked at her but didn't respond. "You said I was nothing more than a breeding mare. You said I had served my purpose and now you were done with me." Isabella's voice was steady, controlled. "You laughed when I begged you not to abandon your pregnant wife in the rain." Emma made a small sound, and Isabella adjusted her gently before continuing. "You asked me what I could possibly offer our daughter. Love," I said, "stability, a mother who wouldn't abandon her." Isabella looked directly into Marcus's eyes. "But you know what else I can offer her now, Justice." Marcus's composure finally cracked completely. "Isabella, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can work this out. I love you. I love Emma. We can be a family again. You love me." Isabella's voice carried a note of incredulity. "Marcus, 3 hours ago you were planning to have me killed. That's not. I never. Those emails weren't serious." "Enough!" The shout came from Agent Mitchell, who had apparently heard enough. "Mr. Blackwood, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, tax evasion, and fraud." As federal agents moved to handcuff Marcus, he looked around the room desperately, his eyes finally settling on Isabella. "Isabella, please, think about Emma. She needs her father. She needs stability, education, opportunities. I can give her everything." Isabella looked at the man who had once been everything to her, who had promised her forever and then discarded her like garbage. She felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a complete absence of any emotion toward him. "Emma will have everything she needs," Isabella said quietly. "She'll have a mother who loves her, a home where she's wanted, and most importantly, she'll grow up knowing that no one has the right to treat her the way you treated me." As the agents led Marcus away, he twisted around for one last desperate look at Isabella and his daughter. "You'll regret this," he called out as they reached the door. "Without me, you're nothing. You'll always be nothing." Isabella watched him go, feeling Emma settle peacefully in her arms. For the first time in months, she felt truly calm. Sophia approached her with documents ready for signature. "How does it feel?" Isabella. Isabella looked at her daughter, then at the legal papers that would secure Emma's future and bring justice for Elena Martinez and countless other women Marcus had hurt. "It feels like the beginning," she said simply. And as she signed her name to the documents that would make her one of the wealthiest women in New York, Isabella Romano smiled. Justice, she had learned, was often delayed, but it was never denied. 6 months after that pivotal day in Sophia Chen's conference room, Isabella Romano stood on the terrace of her new penthouse overlooking the Hudson River, watching the sun set over Manhattan while Emma played contentedly in her arms. The apartment was nothing like the gilded cage Marcus had kept her in. This space was bright, warm, and most importantly, it was truly hers. The transformation of Isabella's life had been nothing short of remarkable. As the new majority owner of what was now called Romano Holdings, she had immediately implemented changes that reflected her values and vision. The company's focus shifted from pure profit maximization to sustainable development and social responsibility. "Mrs. Romano," came the voice of James, her new assistant. "The Forbes reporter is here for your interview." Isabella smiled as she handed Emma to Maria, the nanny who had become like family to them both. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was about to be interviewed for a cover story titled "From Discarded Wife to Business Icon, the Isabella Romano Story." The reporter, Jennifer Walsh, was a seasoned business journalist who had covered many powerful figures over her career. But as she set up her recording equipment in Isabella's living room, she seemed genuinely impressed by the woman sitting across from her. "Ms. Romano, 6 months ago, you were homeless and 8 months pregnant. Today, you're the CEO of a $3 billion empire and one of the most powerful women in New York. How does that feel? Isabella considered the question carefully. It feels like coming home to myself. For years, I defined myself through Marcus's vision of who I should be. Now I get to discover who I actually am. Your transformation of Romano Holdings has been remarkable. Revenue is up 40%. You've launched 5 social housing projects, and employee satisfaction has reached record highs. What's driving these changes? I believe business should serve people, not the other way around, Isabella replied. Marcus saw employees as resources to be exploited. I see them as human beings with families, dreams, and the right to dignity at work. Jennifer leaned forward, clearly intrigued. Let's talk about the Romano Foundation. You've committed $100 million to helping women escape domestic violence. That's personal for you. Isabella nodded, looking out the window where Emma was now napping in her stroller on the terrace. I was lucky, Jennifer. I had resources, education, and ultimately, excellent legal representation. Most women in abusive situations don't have those advantages. If my story can help other women find their strength and their voices, then everything I went through was worth it. Speaking of legal representation, Sophia Chen has become quite famous as your attorney and now general counsel of Romano Holdings. She's been credited with creating a new model for how law firms can serve women in crisis. Sophia saved my life, Isabella said simply. But more than that, she showed me that I didn't have to accept being treated as less than human. She's now using the resources of Romano Holdings to offer legal services to women who can't afford them otherwise. The interview continued for another hour, covering Isabella's business philosophy, her vision for the future, and her thoughts on justice and redemption. When Jennifer finally packed up her equipment, she lingered for a moment. Off the record, she said, what you've accomplished is extraordinary. But I have to ask, do you ever think about Marcus, about what he's going through? Isabella was quiet for a long moment, considering the question. The truth was, she did think about Marcus sometimes, though not in the way people might expect. Marcus is serving 8 years in federal prison, Isabella said finally. He writes to me sometimes, letters apologizing, begging for forgiveness, asking to see Emma. I don't respond. Do you hate him? No, Isabella said, and she realized as she said it that it was completely true. I don't hate him. Jennifer, hate would give him power over me, and I won't allow that. Marcus made his choices, and now he's living with the consequences. My energy is focused on building a better future for Emma and for the women we serve through the foundation. That evening, as Isabella was putting Emma to bed in the nursery, she had designed herself. Sophia stopped by with updates on their latest legal victories. 3 more women this week, Sophia reported, settling into the rocking chair they kept in Emma's room. All successfully divorced from abusive husbands, all with custody of their children, all with enough settlement money to start over. That's wonderful, Isabella said, adjusting Emma's blanket. And the Elena Martinez Scholarship Program, fully funded, we'll be able to send 50 women to law school each year, completely free. The first class starts in the fall. Isabella looked down at her daughter, who had inherited her father's dark hair, but her mother's determined spirit. I want her to grow up in a world where no woman has to choose between safety and security. She will, Sophia assured her. We're making sure of it. As if sensing their conversation, Emma stirred and opened her eyes, looking directly at Isabella with that intense gaze that reminded her daily of the strength that ran in their family line. Hi, baby girl, Isabella whispered. Mama's here. Emma made a soft cooing sound and reached up with her tiny hand, grasping Isabella's finger with surprising strength. She's going to be a force of nature, Sophia observed with a smile. Good, Isabella replied. The world needs more forces of nature. Later that night, after Sophia had left and Emma was sleeping peacefully, Isabella found herself in her home office, reviewing applications for the Romano Foundation's Emergency Assistance Program. Each application represented a woman in crisis, a family in need, a life that could be transformed with the right support. There was Maria Santos, a teacher whose husband had beaten her so severely she'd been hospitalized and who needed legal help to get custody of her 3 children. There was Jennifer Kim, a nurse whose husband had isolated her from her family and controlled every aspect of her finances. There was Rebecca Johnson, a social worker whose husband had threatened to kill her if she left him. Isabella approved funding for all of them. As she worked, her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. For a moment, she wondered if it might be Marcus. He'd somehow gotten access to phones before. But when she opened the message, it was from someone unexpected. Miss Romano, this is Elena Martinez's sister, Carmen. I saw your interview on the news. Thank you for making sure she didn't die for nothing. Thank you for making sure other women won't suffer what she suffered. Elena would be proud. Isabella stared at the message for a long time, feeling the weight of responsibility and purpose settle around her like a comfortable cloak. Elena Martinez would never see justice for herself, but her memory was helping to protect other women every day. Isabella typed back, Elena's courage in standing up to Marcus inspired everything we've built. She's the real hero of this story. The response came quickly. No, Ms. Romano, you're both heroes. Elena started the fight, but you finished it. Around midnight, Isabella made her final rounds of the penthouse, checking on Emma and turning off lights. In Emma's nursery, she paused to look at the photo she kept on the bookshelf. Not a picture of Marcus, but a photo of Elena Martinez that Carmen had sent her. Elena had been beautiful, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She looked like someone who would have been a wonderful mother, someone who deserved so much more than the life Marcus had given her. I promise, Isabella whispered to the photo, Emma will grow up knowing about you. She'll know that her comfortable life exists because another woman was brave enough to stand up to her father, even though it cost her everything. As Isabella prepared for bed, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. 18 months ago, she had been a different person, dependent, vulnerable, willing to sacrifice her own identity for the illusion of security. The woman she had become bore little resemblance to the frightened wife who had begged Marcus not to abandon her. Her phone buzzed one more time, a message from Dr. Michael Santos, the pediatrician who had been caring for Emma since birth and who had, over the past few months, become something more than just Emma's doctor. Dinner tomorrow. The message read, I promise to let you pick the restaurant this time. Isabella smiled as she typed back, only if you let me pay. Independent women insist on splitting the check. Deal. See you at 7. Michael was nothing like Marcus. Where Marcus had been controlling, Michael was supportive. Where Marcus had been manipulative, Michael was honest. Where Marcus had seen Isabella as a possession, Michael saw her as a partner. They were taking things slowly, both recognizing that Isabella needed time to fully heal from her marriage and that any relationship built on the foundation of her trauma would be doomed from the start. But there was something genuine growing between them, something based on mutual respect and shared values rather than power dynamics and financial dependency. As Isabella settled into bed, she could hear the sounds of the city below. Traffic, sirens, the distant sound of music from a restaurant across the street. It was the sound of life going on, of people pursuing their dreams and building their futures. For the first time in years, Isabella felt like she was part of that life, rather than just observing it from behind the gilded bars of someone else's cage. In the morning, Isabella would wake up, feed Emma, review business reports, and continue the work of building something meaningful from the ashes of her old life. She would meet with architects about the next low-income housing project, review applications for the scholarship program, and have lunch with the mayor to discuss expanding services for domestic violence survivors. But tonight, she simply fell asleep holding the knowledge that she had not only survived, but thrived. Not only found justice, but created it for others. Marcus Blackwood had thought he could dispose of her like a used tissue. Instead, he had created his own worst nightmare, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. 6 months from now, Isabella would publish a book about her experience, titled From Ashes to Empire, A Mother's Fight for Justice. The book would become a bestseller and inspire thousands of women to leave abusive relationships and fight for their rights. 1 year from now, she would testify before Congress about the need for stronger domestic violence protections and more resources for survivors. 2 years from now, she would expand the Romano Foundation internationally, helping women in countries where they had even fewer legal protections than she had enjoyed. And 10 years from now, she would watch Emma blow out candles on her 11th birthday cake, surrounded by friends and family in the home Isabella had built for them, not with Marcus's money, but with her own strength, her own choices, and her own vision of what family should be. But all of that was still in the future. Tonight, Isabella Romano slept peacefully in her own bed, in her own home, with her daughter safe in the next room and her future entirely in her own hands. The girl who had once begged for help had become the woman who provided it. The wife who had been discarded like garbage had become the CEO who changed lives. And the mother who had been told she had nothing to offer her child had given Emma the most valuable gift of all, the knowledge that women are strong, that justice is possible, and that no one has the right to make you feel small. Marcus Blackwood had laughed when Isabella begged for help. He wasn't laughing anymore. Justice had been served. But more importantly, a new life had been built from the ruins of the old one, not just for Isabella and Emma, but for countless other women who would benefit from the empire Isabella had built on the foundation of her own refusal to give up. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, and she was magnificent. This story is dedicated to every woman who has ever been told she is nothing, who has ever been made to feel small, who has ever been discarded by someone who should have protected her. You are stronger than you know, more valuable than they told you, and capable of building something beautiful from even the darkest circumstances. Your voice matters. Your strength matters. You matter.